You felt it, didn't you? The moment you clicked, that brief tightening behind your eyes. That pause you didn't plan, as if something inside you leaned forward before you consciously decided to, because somewhere in that moment, something shifted, not loudly, not dramatically, subtly. You didn't announce anything. You didn't reveal a secret. You didn't explain yourself. You simply let something real slip through. Not the rehearsed version of you, not the polished response, but the pause, the hesitation, the choice you made without thinking about how it would look. And now you can feel it. The attention hasn't arrived with applause. It arrived with silence, with eyes lingering longer than before, with people replaying the moment in their heads, frame by frame. They're asking questions you never agreed to answer. Why did you stop there? Why didn't you correct it? Why didn't you smooth it over? Why did you look so calm? They call it speculation, like that makes it harmless. Like it's just curiosity passing time. But speculation is never about nothing. People speculate when a pattern breaks, when something doesn't fit the story they already told themselves, when a signal leaks through the noise and they don't know how to categorize it. And you leaked something, not weakness, depth. That's what unsettles them. Because weakness invites control, depth invites uncertainty. And uncertainty makes people restless. You didn't expose yourself by talking too much. You exposed yourself by not rushing to explain, by letting silence stand where reassurance was expected. Silence is dangerous that way. It makes people invent stories, and most of the stories they invent have nothing to do with you. They replay that moment privately. They analyze tone, timing, posture. They zoom in on details that weren't meant to carry meaning. But once people sense depth, nothing is accidental anymore. You lose the right to be casual, to be unintentional, to be dismissed as harmless background noise. Every movement becomes a message. Every stillness becomes strategy. You didn't ask for that shift, but it found you anyway. Not because you tried to be seen, because you didn't flinch when you were. This isn't about attention in the obvious sense. This isn't about recognition or validation. This is about presence, and presence destabilizes insecure minds. They say, it's probably nothing, while checking again. They say, you're reading too much into it. While replaying it themselves, they laugh it off publicly and build entire theories in private because you contradicted something they expected. You looked composed where panic would have made sense, focused where confusion would have been easier. You didn't rush to fix the discomfort they felt, and discomfort demands explanation. When people don't get one, they invent it. Here's the part most people misunderstand. You didn't lose control of the narrative. You changed it. Losing control looks like scrambling, explaining, overcorrecting. Changing the narrative looks like pressure, and pressure reveals structure. What you revealed wasn't intention, it was capacity. That's why the attention feels sharp instead of loud, why it feels investigative instead of celebratory. This isn't admiration yet, it's assessment. They're measuring you against their own limits, and discovering the measurements don't align. This is where most people panic. They rush to clarify, they soften their edges. They apologize for being misunderstood. That's the trap. Because the moment you explain yourself, you grant them the authority to question you. And you don't owe that. Speculation feeds on reaction. Deny it reaction, and it collapses inward. Watch how quickly curiosity turns into confusion when it gets nothing to push against. You're standing at the edge of a story you never meant to tell. A story that began the moment you stopped sanding down the sharp parts of yourself. This isn't a warning, it's an invitation. an invitation to see what happens when you don't clean up the mess they made inside their own heads. To recognize that exposure isn't weakness when handled with restraint. They think they're watching you, they don't realize you're watching them watch. And this is where it gets interesting, because speculation never stays quiet. It mutates. It moves from private thoughts to shared glances, from jokes that aren't really jokes to concern that isn't really concern. People who never noticed you before start paying attention a little too closely. Attention changes temperature when mixed with uncertainty. When people can't place you, they try to reduce you. They search for labels, motives, weak spots. They dig through fragments of the past, half-remembered moments, hoping to find something that explains you in a way that makes them comfortable. Not accurate, comfortable. Because discomfort forces growth, and most people would rather invent a story than expand their limits. They call it analysis, but it's avoidance. And this is where your advantage lives, in the gap between what they think they know and what you actually are. You didn't expose everything, you exposed just enough to disrupt certainty. Uncertainty is addictive. Take it away and people become restless. They start projecting fears they never admitted to themselves. They accuse you of intentions they secretly want. This isn't about you being dangerous. It's about you reminding them that control is fragile. Watch how the tone shifts. Curiosity becomes concern. Concern hardens into judgment. That progression isn't random. It's defensive, because the longer you remain unexplained, the more they realize the story isn't yours to finish. It's theirs. And that realization stings. You might feel the urge to step in, to clear the air, to correct the misunderstandings before they grow legs. That urge is human, but understand the cost. The moment you rush to manage perception, you surrender your position. You shrink to fit expectations that were never designed for you. And once you do that, speculation doesn't stop. It escalates. Because now they know you're listening. People speak the loudest when they know they're being heard. What's required here isn't silence born of fear. It's silence born of choice. Discipline, stillness, precision. When you don't react, speculation loses direction. It contradicts itself. One person says you're calculated. Another says you're careless. One claims it was planned. Another insists it was accidental. Contradictions are cracks, and cracks let truth breathe. This is also the moment you start to see who's watching for the right reasons. The ones who don't rush to conclusions, who observe without demanding answers. They don't speculate loudly, they wait. Those minds matter. Everything else is noise reacting to its own echo. Don't mistake volume for importance. The loudest voices usually have the weakest footing. You are not required to be understood to move forward. Understanding is a luxury, not a prerequisite. History doesn't move because everyone agrees. It moves because someone continues without asking permission. And right now, by refusing to correct the narrative, you are moving quietly, intentionally. That's what unsettles them, not what you exposed. What you refuse to explain. There is power in letting people sit with their assumptions. It forces them to confront their logic, their biases, their limits. Some will double down, some will retreat, a few will adjust. That's sorting, and sorting is necessary. Clarity often looks like chaos before it looks like order. So don't shrink back. Don't overperform clarity. Don't chase approval disguised as clearing things up. You didn't accidentally expose weakness. You exposed complexity. And complexity intimidates simple thinking. Let them speculate. Let them debate. Let them reveal themselves through the stories they tell about you. Every theory they create is a mirror they didn't realize they were holding. By now, you've noticed something else shifting, not outside. Inside, a recalibration. When you stop chasing explanations, your posture changes, your timing sharpens, your attention narrows. You move differently when you're no longer trying to be interpreted. This is quiet confidence, the kind most people never train. Speculation only gives you leverage if you don't misuse it. If you rush to capitalize, you look reactive. If you deny it loudly, you look defensive. But if you continue forward with discipline, it becomes gravity. People adjust themselves around you. They speak more carefully. They hesitate before assuming. This isn't intimidation. It's respect learning the hard way. Notice how the questions change. They stop asking what happened. They start asking what's next. That's not curiosity. That's anxiety aligning with momentum. They want to know where you're headed so they can decide whether to follow, oppose, or step aside. And the funniest part, you never announced a direction. You simply didn't stop. Momentum scares people more than statements ever could. And this is where discipline matters. Attention can intoxicate. It can tempt you into performance. Resist it. Power isn't volume. It's consistency. Showing up the same way whether they're watching or not, especially when they are. You may feel doubt. That's normal. When the room gets quiet, your thoughts get louder. You'll wonder if silence was misread, if you should have clarified, if doing nothing was a mistake. Sit with that discomfort. It's feedback, not failure. It's the sound of old habits losing control. Not everyone deserves access to your reasoning. Transparency is not a moral obligation. It's a strategic choice. And you decide when, how, and with whom. People confuse mystery with manipulation because they're used to oversharing as proof of honesty. But restraint is honest too. It says, I trust my direction enough not to justify it. That sentence alone unsettles more minds than any explanation ever will. Watch what happens next. Some people drift away. They were only comfortable with the version of you they could predict. Let them. Others lean in quietly. They watch actions, not words. Those are the ones who understand that meaning isn't announced. It's demonstrated. This stage isn't glamorous. It's quiet, deliberate, sometimes lonely. But it's clean, no borrowed opinions, no excess noise, just you, your direction, and the discipline to keep moving without applause. Let the speculation settle where it belongs, in other people's minds. You have work to do that doesn't require consensus. And the most powerful thing you can do right now is this: stay precise. Stay measured, stay forward. Because while they're still asking who you are, you're already deciding what comes next. And this story, it isn't finished yet. And that's when it becomes unmistakable. Not to them, to you. Because something locks into place internally. A steadiness that doesn't ask for confirmation, a calm that doesn't need to be explained. The speculation is still there, but it's no longer loud in your mind. It fades into background static while your focus sharpens. You stop tracking who's watching and start moving with intention. That's the shift. You realize you're no longer reacting to perception. You're acting from alignment. And alignment changes how time feels. You're not rushed. You're not stalled. You are exactly where you need to be. The people still guessing will keep guessing. They'll look for patterns, signals, proof. But clarity doesn't announce itself to those committed to confusion. You don't correct them. You don't feed the narrative. You let consistency do the work. And consistency is patient. It shows up the same way every time. Not to impress, to confirm. You notice who adjusts, who grows quieter, who steps back without being pushed. That's influence forming without effort. You also notice who stays. The ones who don't demand access to your reasoning, who respect pace, who understand that not everything is meant to be decoded aloud. Those connections feel clean, unforced, real. You've learned something essential now. Being misunderstood is not a flaw. It's a phase that passes when direction stays firm. You no longer explain who you are becoming. You demonstrate it, slowly, precisely, over time. And that's when the noise loses relevance. Because the moment you stop orbiting opinion, opinion starts orbiting you. You move forward without spectacle, without resistance, without needing the room to catch up. This is the quiet end of the beginning. Not closure, momentum, and whatever comes next. You meet it the same way you met this moment. Clear, composed, and already in motion.